Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CCISO Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. And welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CISO Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Information security policies form the foundation of the entire security governance framework within an organization. These documents establish formal expectations and provide authoritative direction for how data and systems must be protected. Policies ensure consistency across business units, systems, and users by defining universal standards of acceptable behavior and technical controls. They serve as the primary means for translating external requirements, such as legal mandates, regulatory compliance obligations, or internal business goals, into enforceable organizational rules. In doing so, they also become an essential tool for risk management. Policies make clear what users may and may not do, what protections must be in place, and how responsibilities are assigned. Beyond proactive guidance, policies also serve an important role in supporting audits, internal investigations, and disciplinary actions. When non-compliance occurs, documented policies provide the framework for determining whether expectations were clearly established and whether enforcement actions are appropriate and defensible. A well-written security policy typically includes several core components that ensure clarity, applicability, and enforceability. The scope and applicability section defines who the policy applies to, whether it's employees, contractors, business units, or specific systems, and under what circumstances. This section prevents confusion about which users or environments fall under the policy. The roles and responsibilities section outlines who owns the policy, who enforces it, and who is accountable for ensuring its implementation. Including definitions is also essential, particularly when technical or legal terms are used. Clear definitions reduce ambiguity and help non-expert readers understand critical concepts. The requirements and controls section is the operational core of the policy. This is where the mandatory behaviors, security configurations, or procedural expectations are described. It must be written with enough specificity to support enforcement. Finally, every policy must include provisions for handling exceptions and sanctions. These describe how deviations may be requested, approved, and tracked, and what consequences apply in cases of noncompliance. Security policies are often categorized into types based on their breadth and focus. Enterprise-wide policies address general expectations that apply across the entire organization. Common examples include acceptable use policies, information classification policies, and overall information security policies. Domain-specific policies cover more focused areas such as access control, mobile device security, and incident response. These are often aligned with specific security functions or control families. Role-based policies are designed for particular job categories, such as system administrators or remote workers, whose responsibilities or risks differ from the general workforce. Programmatic policies guide specific business processes or initiatives, such as vendor risk management, data encryption, or cloud security. These may cross technical and procedural boundaries. Finally, many organizations align their policies to external frameworks. ISO 27001 and the NIST Cybersecurity Framework are commonly used to structure policy families and ensure comprehensive coverage. This alignment supports certification efforts and simplifies audits by external parties. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Developing a policy requires following a structured life cycle. The first phase is policy planning. This includes identifying the drivers for the policy, such as regulatory changes, audit findings, business requirements, or risk assessments. Planning should also include stakeholder analysis and initial scoping. Next comes the drafting phase. During this step, stakeholders contribute input and drafts are created using consistent language, formatting, and structure. The policy then moves into the review and approval phase. Legal, compliance, and human resources must typically review the document for accuracy and enforceability. Executive leadership provides final validation, ensuring the policy reflects the organization's risk appetite and culture. Once approved, the policy must be communicated effectively. Announcements, training, and publication to accessible platforms are key elements of this step. Finally, the policy must be subject to ongoing review and revision. Policy should not remain static. They must be reviewed on a scheduled basis and updated when internal or external conditions change. Documenting these cycles maintains accountability and ensures relevance over time. Executive and stakeholder involvement is vital throughout the policy development process. The Chief Information Security Officer is ultimately responsible for policy leadership and ensuring alignment with the organization's security strategy. This means setting direction, reviewing content, and guiding enforcement plans. Legal and compliance teams ensure that the policy language supports regulatory obligations and avoids legal risk. They may also help align the policy with contractual commitments or data protection laws. Human resources plays a key role in aligning policy enforcement with employment law and disciplinary procedures. In many cases, HR will be responsible for ensuring that violations are handled fairly and consistently. IT and business units must also be consulted to ensure operational feasibility. For instance, a policy that mandates full disk encryption must consider the capabilities of the organization's hardware and support teams. Lastly, executive sponsorship is essential. When the board or C-suite endorses a policy, it sends a clear signal that compliance is mandatory, not optional, and supports organization-wide adherence. Writing policies that are both clear and enforceable is a key skill for CISOs. The language of the policy must be as plain as possible, reducing ambiguity and avoiding interpretation errors. Overly technical jargon should be avoided unless clearly defined in the policy itself. Structuring policies for readability is also important. This includes the use of headings, bullet points, and numbered sections that allow readers to quickly find and understand relevant sections. Enforceability depends on specificity. For example, saying passwords must be strong is vague, while passwords must be at least 12 characters and include a mix of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters is enforceable. Action-oriented language helps reinforce mandatory expectations rather than optional guidance. The tone of the policy should match the organization's culture and risk tolerance. Some organizations favor highly formal language, while others adopt a more accessible tone. Regardless of tone, the policy must leave no doubt about what is expected and what will happen if expectations are not met. Communication and training are essential to ensure that policies are not just published, but understood and followed. Launching a new or updated policy should include a formal announcement that outlines why the policy was developed, what changes are involved, and what actions employees must take. Training programs should incorporate policy content into onboarding processes as well as ongoing awareness campaigns. This helps reinforce expectations and keeps policies top of mind. Accessibility also matters. Policies should be stored in a centralized, searchable location, such as an intranet site or policy management tool, so that employees can consult them when needed. Real-world scenarios help contextualize policy rules and make them more relatable. For example, showing how a seemingly harmless action could violate the acceptable use policy adds clarity and impact. Tracking policy acknowledgement is another critical step. Using attestations, where employees confirm they have read and understood a policy, helps demonstrate compliance and supports audit readiness. Policy enforcement and exception management are where written rules become operational practices. Every policy must define how violations will be detected, reported, and investigated. Automated controls, such as system logs, alerts, or monitoring tools, can support enforcement by identifying deviations in real time. Exception procedures should also be formally defined. Employees or teams may need to request temporary or permanent exceptions due to technical constraints or unique business needs. These requests must be reviewed through a documented process that includes risk evaluation, executive approval, and defined expiration dates. All exceptions must be logged and regularly reviewed. Failing to manage exceptions properly creates hidden risks and undermines the integrity of the overall policy framework. Human resources and legal teams play a key role in managing violations. When policies are breached, enforcement must be fair, consistent, and aligned with employment agreements and legal standards. Ongoing auditing and improvement of policies ensure that they remain effective in a changing threat and compliance landscape. Every policy should have a scheduled review cycle, often annually or biannually, to evaluate whether it is still relevant and accurate. Internal audits can help assess whether the policy is being followed, whether controls are implemented as stated, and whether users understand their responsibilities. Feedback from incidents, security assessments, or user reports can also identify areas where policies may need clarification or strengthening. Benchmarking policies against peer organizations or recognized frameworks ensures that the organization remains competitive and aligned with industry standards. Version control is important when updating policies. Older versions should be archived with clear revision history to demonstrate accountability and traceability. This helps during audits and investigations, where it may be necessary to show what rules were in effect at a specific time. The CISO exam includes several topics related to information security policy development. Candidates must be able to recognize the structure and core components of an effective policy. Exam questions may involve aligning policy language with specific control gaps or risk scenarios. For example, a question may describe a data breach and ask which policy should have been in place or how the policy should be updated in response. Executive-level questions may involve reviewing and approving policy exceptions or understanding the implications of policy violations across departments. Familiarity with terminology such as scope, enforcement, attestation, and exception management is essential. Candidates must also understand how policies underpin other domains of security leadership, including risk management, audit preparedness, and compliance enforcement. Policies are not isolated documents. They form the governance framework that enables the entire security program to function effectively. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal CyberC CISO Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.